Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December session of Krapar and Kini. Kevork is very well prepared with his festive Christmas lights and stockings in the background, and we're all feeling in the holiday spirit. Let's raise a glass to say Ganats to Krapar and to a full year of this group being together and our wishes and hopes for continuing in the coming year.
Hear, hear.
So I'm very excited this evening that we have Andrew Kayaian with us. Andrew is a subdeacon in the Armenian Church. He's a graduate of Fordham University. He also has advanced degrees from St. Nersess Armenian Seminary, St. Vladimir Seminary, and also Fordham University. And he is my trusted and beloved and reliable assistant at the Zohrab Information Center, where he's been for at least 5 years, off and on. And he's a master cataloger of books and an all-around information expert that I am constantly turning to for advice and just conferring on matters there.
That's a shame. That's a shame.
Hang on. No. So he has chosen a text from Eznik of Koghb that most of us have had a chance to look at. And it's not an easy text. So Andrew, we're looking forward very much to your introduction to Eznik and also to getting to look at the text together.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm honored to have been asked to lead tonight's Krapar and Kini lesson, invited, of course, by Dr. Jesse, and I hope it will prove to be fun and enriching. So I'm not going to waste any time, just get right into it. Tonight's lesson will focus on a very short passage from what I think is a very special theological treatise composed in the 5th century by, as Jesse mentioned, the Armenian church father known as Eznik of Koghb, Eznik of Koghb. The work itself, I'm sorry, I have a PowerPoint to share. Let me see if I can. One moment. Here we are. All right. Oh wait. Oh dear. Well, I'm sorry about this. One moment, please. Okay. What can you see of the screen?
It's not quite the sharing mode. It's kind of, we see the PowerPoint, but there's also the little slides on the side. And
oh, okay.
You had it for a second there, the whole screen, but then it went away.
Oh dear, I won't be able to. I have notes written up here. I won't be able to see them if I share it full screen like that. Let me try something else. All right. Let me see. All right, I'm sorry about this. I'm gonna have to. This is what I'm gonna have to do in order to read my script. My apologies for that.
Are you able to, Andrew? Are you able to access your notes on your phone by any chance?
I don't think so. No, I know. I not on my phone. No.
Okay.
All right. All right. Let me see. All right. I'll jump into it then. The work that we'll be looking at tonight didn't actually have any title originally ascribed to it, and the titles that we know it by today were given to it by later manuscript copyists and later publishers of the manuscript that it came from. The titles that we know this book by include the Book of Refutations, the Refutation of the Sects, and also the more abstract title, On God. Given the nature of the work, which we'll look at shortly, and the time in which Saint Eznik wrote the work, I think the second title is the most appropriate. But a more literal translation of the words used would be Destruction of Doctrines. And this would be presumably of false doctrines, as you can see. It's divided into 4 parts, and the passage that we'll read from and translate tonight is a small section from chapter 6 of part 1. Before getting into the passage, however, the background of the text is really interesting and is absolutely crucial to understanding why Eznik even wrote this work in the first place. When you think about being an Armenian Christian, one thing that we tend to recall is that our church fathers, specifically Saints Mesrob and Sahag, Saint Mesrob Vartabed and Catholicos Sahag, created an alphabet for the Armenian language in order to translate the scriptures and many other works into Armenian, and to make the scriptures, liturgy, hymns, sermons, as well as other types of literature available to Armenians in their own language. In fact, the Armenian Church has a feast day dedicated to Saints Mesrob and Sahag, known as the Feast of the Holy Translators. However, it has to be remembered that logically, 2 individuals couldn't be expected to create an alphabet and translate thousands of works by themselves. That would be almost impossible. I mean, look at Jesse and I. We run the Zohrab Center as best we can, and we're just cataloging books, to say nothing of translating them. All due respect, Jesse is a wonderful director of the Zohrab Center. The main point, however, should be remembered that these 2 saints had many companions along with them, and it wasn't just the 2 of them. So the feast is dedicated not only to Mesrob and Sahag, but all the companions who worked with them in their enterprise. Saint Mesrob may have invented the alphabet personally, but implementing it was the work of dozens of other individuals. And according to the tradition of the church, as well as the ancient historical writings that we have, Eznik was one of these companions. And like Mesrob and like Saint Mesrob, Eznik was sent out into the wider East Mediterranean world to receive education in Syriac language around Edessa, to Constantinople to become educated in Greek language and literature, and to collect works from these areas, return them to Armenia, and contribute to the translation work. He's also been identified in the historical sources as a bishop of the Bagravan region, which is right here. Sort of, well, it would be in Eastern Turkey today, but properly in ancient Armenia. In addition to translating, the translators themselves were also responsible for creating original works. And this piece that we'll be looking at tonight by Eznik was one such example, and which makes this one of the earliest, if not the earliest, original piece of Armenian Christian writing, or at least in the genre of apologetics. Now, apologetics is a very specific type of writing, usually a formal and systematic argumentation in defense of religious doctrine against critics or conflicting doctrines. So that's what the nature of this text is. It's written in defense of Christianity as understood by the 5th century Armenians. Now, the reason that Eznik chose to write such a work, an apologetic treatise, is completely understandable when you remember the time in which he lived. Now, another episode famous in Armenian Christianity is the Battle of Avarayr in 451, when Saint Vartan Mamegonian led various Armenian nobles in a rebellion against the imperial Iranian government of the time, because the Iranians were attempting to reimpose Zoroastrianism on the Armenians and overreach into the lives and liberties of the Armenians. For at least a generation before Eznik's time, Armenia did not exist as a country. It was divided between the Romans and the Persians on either side of them. In addition to that, leading up to the Battle of Avarai was a half a century of Iranian imperial interference in the lives of the Armenians. Trying to proselytize the Zoroastrian faith, trying to meddle in church affairs, even going so far as to replace Catholicos Sahag with an Iranian-approved puppet patriarch. But no one ever listened to them. They were just official puppets of the Iranian Empire. In addition to that, however, this was only about a century or so after Armenia had been converted officially. So Christianity was not yet fully integrated into the lives of everyday Armenians. So there were still popular beliefs, religious beliefs, superstitious beliefs that people accepted. There were other schools of thought that were popular, namely Greek pagan thought and the works of Plato and Platonism popular at the time, as well as the heretical Christian school of thought, Marcionism, which was popularized by a heretic centuries prior, effectively positing that there were two gods of Christianity, one of the Old Testament and one of the New Testament, which, again, we do not believe this. So the entirety, as you can see here. So up at the top here, we have just a depiction of the principal deity in Zoroastrianism, Aramazd in Armenian, or Ormazd. We have next to him, a mythological Armenian creature, the Arales, which you can look up on your own, but suffice it to say, it's just an indication of Armenian mythology that was popular. We have here the image of the Iranian Shah, who was responsible just before the Battle of Avarai for interfering with the Armenians. A brief representation here of the goddess Athena, and at the bottom, to the bottom right, is a representation of Marcian. So the entire treatise by Eznik is dedicated to arguing against the various arguments put forward by these schools of thought on the nature of good and evil, on the nature of God, on various topics. And we see here the division of the entire work. Oops. Comes in 4 parts or 4 books. The largest sections of the whole work are books 1 and 2, both of which have 28 chapters and almost the same number of paragraphs to each one. So as we can see, the nature of God, nature of good and evil, and arguments against dualism are the most important consideration because they take up the most amount of space in the work. Followed very closely by the second part, also in 28 chapters, directed against the Persians, specifically the Zoroastrianism popular in Eznik's time. Book 3 is a little less important on Eznik's radar. It's not as long as the first 2 parts, but it's still significant. This is against the pre-Christian Greek philosophers. And finally, book 4 has the fewest chapters, the 3rd most number of paragraphs, and this is against the Marcionite heresy. And again, a lot of this is dedicated toward arguing against dualism, which, well, it's, yeah. I have also here a brief bibliography from where you can find further information about the information that I've given tonight. On Eznik of Koghb, we have the website, the Encyclopedia Iranica, which is a tremendous resource on anything Iran related. and by extension, anything Armenian related, because there's such a close affinity between the ancient Iranian and ancient Armenian traditions. It's not scholarly, but there's also the Wikipedia article on Eznik of Koghb, which, again, it's not the first thing that you want to look to, but the references listed at the end are very good sources. And then for texts of Eznik's work, there's an English retelling of it, published by, done by Thomas J. Samuelian at tertullian.org. And then there's the full Krapar, which you can find at the American University of Armenia's website. It's the DigiLib, their digital library website. One quick historical tidbit before we begin reading the text itself. In his retelling, Thomas J. Samuelian notes that this work by Eznik survives in only one manuscript, just one. We know, for example, that there are thousands, if not millions, of manuscripts of the Bible in various languages. But this work, as well as other historical works, maybe not thousands, but several hundred at least, or dozens. This work by Eznik only comes in one manuscript. Similar, actually, to the early English epic poem Beowulf. That only exists in one manuscript. So we're extremely fortunate that this work has come down to us. It was copied in the year 1280 at the monastery of Gladzor, which is about 20 miles southeast of Yerevan, and it's now housed in the Matenadaran in Armenia. So it's a very, very precious thing that we have, and we're extremely fortunate to be able to be reading it tonight. Okay, so that is the end of my introductory section, and I'm going to get rid of that. And Jesse, would you be able to screen share?
Yes. Thank you so much for that intro, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Now we can look together at the text, and I can make notes along the way as we go.
All right. One thing I should mention, somebody else mentioned this earlier just before we began, the actual language in this text is very difficult. For example, imagine if you're trying to read John Locke versus the Harry Potter novel series. It's very different. It's a very different type of, it's the same language, it's Armenian, but the grammar, the syntax, the vocabulary, the manner, just the manner of composing the actual thoughts on the paper is very different. So that's why I went with a simpler part of the text and a very short part. We'll be proceeding from the very top where it says number 1, Art Harge I Bajaris, down to the sentence number 4. Na yev zmartig desanem. So perhaps it would be good, Jesse, should I read the whole thing all at once and then we'll proceed line by line?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. So to recall, this is chapter 6 of book 1. This is Eznik's discussing the arguing against dualism, or the very least, well, actually in this section, Eznik is arguing why God was able to make all of creation out of nothing. The philosophical term is ex nihilo, literally from nothing. And he's arguing against the idea that God had to have some pre-existing matter to work with before doing that. But we'll get into that. Art harge I bajarës çarjacën ka, jev tucanel te usti linin çariken, jev që martësel te që barjar çarjac astvac, ainuzi ar enter nëma ës hyuven të nen. Jev art zor hyug ar ceren të nitsen astudzo. Voç aba ken zain, ուստի զաշխարհս արար, որ անգերբարանն եւ անզարդ եւ անարդ էր։ Զի դեսանենք զաշխարհս ի բեսբես գերբարանս եւ իզարտս եւ իհարտս, աբա ուրեմն գերբարանած եւ զարթուց եւ արթուց արարիչ է Աստված եւ ոչ փնությանց։ Իսկ եթե արարչի այն կորձ է, ըստ փնությունս առնել եւ ոչ արթս եւ զարթս եւ գերբարանս, հայդ է, եթե ավելորդ է գարձել, թե նյութո ինչ իմեք է, հնթերագացե արար Աստված աշխարհս, այլ հոչնչե եւ ի չքոյե։ Նա եւս մարդիկ դեսանեն զի ի չքոյե առնեն ինչ, որպես շինողքդ ոչ ի քաղաքս առնեն եւ ոչ ի դաջարած դաջարս։ So that's the part that we'll be looking at. And if you'll excuse me, I need to take a quick drink because I just dried my mouth out. All righty. Are there any volunteers who want to try to tackle sentence number 1? From art harge down to 2 lines below that is huren tenen. Okay, Avo.
Yeah,
be my guest.
I'll tackle it with a lot of cheating because I went to a couple of other sources. Difficult to understand the philosophy behind, but let me try, and please feel free to correct me at any moment.
I'll do my best.
All right. Arthagei bachas chariatson calls. So it is necessary to find the reasons to come and to show the reasons for evil.
That's pretty good. Yeah. It is necessary. I had it translated to delve into. But so kal, you had right, is to go. So if you want to translate that a little bit more metaphorically, it would be to go into the reasons, like you would say in English. Let's get into this. So yeah, that's very good.
Where the evil come from? Che mart asel teche, as some people say it, but chariats, the reason for evil is God. But chariats aspats ein sie are inter nama ashuentenen. Couldn't follow the sentence, but it's basically trying to say that because it comes from his cells, from his body, his being.
Sort of.
Or molecules. No. Okay.
Well, since they place the origin, excuse me. Since they place the origin of evil near to him, that's how I kind of read the last part of the sentence.
Yeah, sort of. Let me get into that. The word, Jesse, would you highlight as huren, please?
Yes.
Okay, that word is actually a technical philosophical term. It is the Armenian transcription of the Greek word hile. And that word hile or hyur in Armenian just means matter. So it's a belief that God was not the creator of everything out of nothing, but that he needed something to mold. So God is not, as we understand him, the creator out of nothing. He can just think it and say it, and there it is. Or actually, that's one meaning of, that's one interpretation of the Genesis story. God said, let there be light, and there was light. So he literally created light by saying, let it be so. This Eznik is trying to argue against the idea that God didn't just say it and made it, but rather, like a statue maker, he had to have a piece of clay beforehand that he had to mold and create. So in this case, so let me see. Eznik is arguing that his opponents say that evil comes from God because it comes from the matter which God used to make everything. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So Eznik is saying in this first sentence that we have to talk about the origins, the reasons for evil, where evil comes from. And he's also saying that we have to argue that evil doesn't come from God. But if these people are saying that evil does come from God, how do they make that argument? They make that argument by saying evil comes from God because of the matter which God used to create things. Have I lost anybody? We all good? All right. Shall we continue?
Sure.
All right. All right, let me see. Okay, let's take the second section, number 2. I think we can take it in. Let's try it with the first sentence, and then if anybody wants to, we can continue. So from Yev art zor down to Yev anart er. Let's just start with that. Avo, thank you for volunteering. Likewise, Matt, for jumping in. Does anybody else want to give it a try?
So reading Hugo's matter, and now, which matter will they place to the hand of God?
Yes, very good.
I'm not doing this off the top of my head. I had to research a lot of this. So
well, actually, one small grammatical point. And Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the word, can you highlight Tanitsen, please? Now, Matt, I think you translated that, Matt, as a future, right? What matter will they put into God's hand?
Yes. It's subjunctive.
Huh?
Isn't it subjunctive on the present stem?
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't know I don't know what exactly that means, because it's kind of.
Okay. What that means in this case is it's a potentiality. Like we would say in English, what would you do? What could you do? What might you do?
Okay.
That sense in English has a specific verb conjugation in Armenian. If you want to talk about potentials, that's the one that you use. So the question is asking, so now, what such matter would they place into God's hands? So yeah, that's right. So please continue.
Certainly not that. Consequently, he created this world, which was formless and ornamentless and shapeless.
Pretty good. The way I understood this, or the way I should mention, by the way, I went over this text last year in a class, so I have an English translation that I'm working off of, and the way my teacher and I came to understand this is that second half is a question, because the word voch after astudzo, that little squiggle on top, is an indication of a question. That's the question mark. So if not that, then from what was the world created, which was formless and unadorned and unrefined? But again, I'm being pedantic. That's quite good. Jesse, were you going to say something?
Yeah, just that the key thing you want to see is that the usti is picking up on Zain. So usti can come to mean consequently or whence, but literally it's like from where. or from which here. So it's like, so which matter would they say that God had at hand? Surely not that one, Zain, from which Usti Zashchara he made the world. So they're surely not talking about that one from which he made the world, which was, so the world, which was without form and unadorned and uneven.
Unrefined?
Unrefined, yeah. Does that make sense how the connecting parts are working together?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. I got to look at it a little closer. Just a stylistic thing, because in the next sentence you have the forms and ornaments and shapes. I like to try to use the same words but just do them negatives. That's why you use ornament less and ornaments instead of adorned. You can't say adorned less or just for just for a little style like that. Because you had those three words show up for the rest of the thing.
Yeah, they do. Okay. Well, you're on a roll, Matt. You want to continue?
I have a question here. The word in quotes, or chagert, as we call it in Armenian, I think, zidesanemk. Who's saying that? He's claiming, or he is talking about other people, his opponents or his people that he's going to disreputate?
I think that for zidesanem zashcharis to the end of the sentence, I think he's quoting what his enemies would say. Did I answer your question?
You did. I mean, I was trying to figure out, who's saying that in the codes. It says it's the code. It must be somebody else, right?
Yeah. I think he's postulating what his opponents would be saying.
Okay. Thank you.
Except that once we come to translate it, it doesn't seem like something the opponents would say. It seems like something he believes. So it might be a mistake on the part of the editors who put in the quotation marks. But we can decide that after we translate it.
Okay.
I have a question. In the first sentence, art zorhul artsen knetsin astudzo. Who is putting this in his hands? Somebody else?
It's a rhetorical question. Eznik is asking his hypothetical opponents, well, what matter are you going to put in God's hands with which he would make the world? That's what it's asking.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Shall we continue?
I suggest, because some of us are not as good as some others, some words are not very understandable for me, at least. For example, art. I didn't know what art meant. I know zart, but I don't know what heart is.
Oh.
So.
Apologies. The word art, I believe in this case, just means now.
Do you mean this word, Moses? This art?
No. I'm talking about Gerbaranus is zartis and he hartis.
Yeah.
I know what zart is, but I don't know what heart is.
Yeah.
Oh.
So here on art and heart.
Yes.
Oh, that's a what is that? That's also refinement or precision or something like that. One moment here. Let me see if I can.
Moses may remember Mazahartar for fur. Somebody.
I read that one as shape or shapes.
Yeah.
Either one works.
Hartarel is the verb.
You mean, yeah. That's exactly hard, yeah. Yeah, this is new to me, so I think Avo is helping. in me understanding this thing.
Okay.
So if we look quickly at the dictionary, so heart, structure, form, ornament. When you put the on in front of it, it loses the he, it looks like. So on art, uneven, unpolished. It might be related, or you know how we have the word artugel, artugel, like to iron, to make something flat or smooth. I think it might be the same root. We could check on that. But that might be an easy way to remember.
Heart means smooth or even.
Yeah. Say that again, Krapar.
A heart. And hartak is like a platform.
Yes.
Heart is even, flat, smooth.
Jesse, what does the NBHL say? Because if there's some Greek in there, that's going to probably point us in a good direction, especially since this is pretty old.
For heart?
For either of them.
Let's check for heart. Achiron.
I think it means to put it in shape, to give shape.
Yeah.
You said it earlier, maybe. Hartarel.
Yeah, hartarel.
It's basically it's used to comb your hair.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, if there's any other words that are unknown, just jump in at any time to ask about them.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Shall we pick up from Z Desanen?
Yes.
Okay. Matt, you started this. Would you like to continue?
Sure, but I got to use shape for that word. So that's
okay.
If we see this world in different forms and ornaments and shapes, therefore God is the creator of the forms and ornaments and shapes, and not of the natures.
Yep. Perfect.
Okay, so that does sound like the opponents and not him.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind.
And actually, I have to admit, when I was looking over the translation that I did last year, I was getting confused because I had forgotten to put an extra set of quotation marks to indicate that he was quoting somebody else. So
Yeah.
that's what his opponents would be saying.
Yeah.
That God doesn't make everything out of nothing; he just tweaks it, he fashions it.
Yeah, the DigiLive version didn't have the quotes, and the one MH version of it did. So I added those here.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the DigiLib version is it's just one published version of it. And actually, I was going to say the quotations in the first part, Mart Asel Teche. I meant to say to leave that out because when I was working with the text, there were little errors and other editorial things that made it a little confusing.
I don't think single quote is an Armenian character. I mean, I could be mistaken, but double.
I'm sorry. In my English translation, not the Armenian. That was my mistake. Sorry, I should have clarified.
I have a question about bes. Zidesanem kashkaris it bes. It's repeated. Anybody?
Yeah.
It's like or like various, diverse.
Various, diverse, exactly. So when you repeat it, bes, various, diverse.
So individually it's like, but bes is
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Another word you can do that with in Krapar is azki. They use these sometimes, different kinds of.
Oh.
Azk. Krapar, like when you repeat words, it usually has this meaning of diverse, various. Yes.
So what does, Jesse, you just wrote something.
Yeah.
What was that?
I can't remember if it's Azki or just Azk.
Yeah. Well, Azki or ask. What does that mean?
It also means various kinds of. So Azk is type, kind, obviously nation. So like type of people. And so if you repeat it, Azk, or it might be Azki, we'd have to check.
I don't think it has the I. I think it's
okay,
Azk.
just Azk, various kinds of. So that's similar to best.
So when you repeat something, ask means various kind of people, right?
It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with people in Krapar. In modern Armenian, Azk means a nation. Okay. But it comes to have that meaning because Azk in Krapar means type, kind. So a type of something. So then its meaning is restricted in modern Armenian to mean just a kind of people, which is a nation.
So best and ask are similar. I mean, what I'm trying to understand. Yeah. Can you apply this for example, chords?
I've never seen chords. You only see it with certain words. And best is one of them. Ask is one of them. Talk. So if you're talking about, he went through the various cities of the realm. Caucus, Ashkarin, through into the various cities of the realm. So you might be able to do chords. I've just never personally seen it, but yes, when you repeat things, it has a sense of various or multiple.
Thank you. That's never seen it before.
Yeah. Any other questions about the grammar on this sentence before we continue? Okay.
Okay. I actually I'd like to make a point here about this next sentence, number 3. The word isk here has a couple of different meanings, but given what came immediately before that in sentence 2, I think isk here has the sense of, he's making a contrary point. So isk could be but, or however, or a more loose translation, in contrast to that.
Yet,
and
maybe?
Then yete would be, pardon?
Yet?
That's yete. Or the I'm sorry. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yet, but, however, and then yete is the if. Although then later on, when yete is repeated further on in the sentence, it has that double use of yete, I believe, here has a sense of if then. So isk yete, the rest of the sentence, haide yete, but if this, and this, then this, and that. So would someone else like to take a turn going through this sentence?
Paragraph 3.
Paragraph 3, yes.
Let me read it quick. It's a small paragraph, and maybe then I'll be done for the night.
Okay.
Is yete ararchi an korznes funtunus arnel yev ոչ artis yev zartis. However, as you said, or but, if it's God's business, God's task is to take what's in the nature and not the shapes and ornaments. No?
Pretty good. The word God doesn't appear in this part. Right now it's just creator.
Ararchi, creator, yes.
Yeah. So, but if that is the work of a creator, that's what that first portion means, up to that little comma, the put at the top. But if that is the work of the creator, and you're right, the next section is the verb is to make, arnel, to make natures. Oh, here we are. To make her to do. Oh, that's right. To make her to do.
It's important to point out that in modern Armenian, arnel is to take, but in Krapar, arnel is to make or do. To take is a similar root, but it has a different declension. Arnul. Arnul. Yeah.
Mm.
And so this one in the past tense, he made, is arar. So iskas pane arar asvad zergines yev zergir. From the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth. So, arar, arnel, and arnul to take in Krapar.
Yeah. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Jesse.
And you can see, so just one other note. So you can see ararich is built on this same root, arar. So the maker, the doer, ararich, the creator.
Rather like in English, when you say you're going to meet your maker, ararich, the one who makes.
Mm.
So all right, so yeah, so we have but if that is the work of the creator to make natures and not shapes and ornaments and forms, and then we continue. Haide, it is obvious then.
It's not necessary to think the inito inch in the subjects or the matters. I don't know that word.
That's what that Jesse. That's declension of inch, isn't it? Or incan?
Close. Imeke is ablative, so like from
right
of even. Sorry.
From some or from something or from certain thing.
Yeah, so there's these words. So emen and vomen. So emen, indefinite, something, a certain thing, and vomen, indefinite, someone, a certain person. So this like men gives that indefinite sense, just a certain thing, a certain person, vomen. You know the word yerpemen, a certain time, in Krapar, in modern Armenian sometimes, which is similar. Yeah, so this is imeke. So inuto inchimeke. It's very emphasized, this like indefiniteness of the news that's being talked about. So from a certain, you could even say unknown, from a certain undefined matter.
And what's the meaning of interrogate?
Interrogats or anteraga. Right. copied it from earlier. In this case, I think present or even next to. So you remember how he was talking about there was a certain matter that was like in God's hands or beside him, a period. They place some matter like beside him or next to him. So meaning before anything that existed at all in the world, you had God, and then there was some matter like around, and that's what he used to create the world. So this is what this is referring to. That certain bit of matter that was beside him.
Just standing around.
There. Yeah, just around.
But the rest of the sentence is not making much sense to me.
Yeah.
I think I can explain it. As I was reading over it again, I think I can parse it out.
Go for it.
May I do so?
Go for it.
Okay. So up to that point, we have, it is obvious then that it's redundant to think that there was some undefined matter standing near that God made the world, and Hail Hochin Che Yev Ichikoye, rather than from nothing and from non-being.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just completing the thought.
Mm-hmm.
Is this his assertion or his explanation of what the opponents are saying? I mean,
this sentence here, number 3, from Iskete Arachi to the very end, Ichikoye, this is Eznik's argument against the previous quotation based on his education as a Christian and as an Armenian Vartabed. So this is what he's arguing.
Yeah. So essentially, as I understand it, and let me say what I think, and Andrew, if you think this is wrong, chime in. So his opponents say God created the shapes and forms, but not the natures. And he's saying, that's what they're saying in this sentence. So we see that the world is in various forms and ornaments and shapes. So then God is the maker or creator of the forms and ornaments and shapes, but not of the natures themselves. And then he's countering that by saying, well, if it's the work of the creator, if we can agree that it's the work of the creator to make the natures and not the shapes and ornaments and forms, then it's clear that it's superfluous to think that God made the world from a certain bit of matter that was nearby rather than from nothing and from non-being. So what he's saying is that God made the natures themselves, not just the shapes and forms.
And once you come to that conclusion, then you don't have to worry about making it from some matter nearby.
Yes.
Because that's superfluous.
Yeah.
What makes it hard is that we're kind of listening in on a debate from the 5th century that was debated on terms, scientific terms of the day that are no longer the terms we use to talk about the nature of reality. So they had natures, and then from nature were derived the shapes and forms and, ornaments of things existing in the world. And the debate is over, did God create the natures that gave rise to these shapes and ornaments of forms, or did he just create the shapes and ornaments and forms, and the natures were pre-existing with him?
So it's kind of like this is in a Platonic context, right? I mean,
Exactly.
The Platonic form of things, or just the outer shape. In other words, it's Greek philosophy to some degree.
Exactly, it is.
Yep. Also part of the learning that the translators brought to Armenia and reworked in Armenian. So he was very well educated in the leading philosophy and science of his day, Eznik, and their companions.
I have another grammatical question though. Ararchiev Arnel. Why is the letter R, one is different than the other? If they are the same, they mean the same, why is it written differently?
Jesse might know this better than I could. As far as I know, there are just certain words where, depending on how they're used in the sentence, they just undergo a change of spelling. As I have no idea as to the reason why they undergo that specific spelling change.
So the reason why is when a re comes before a nu, it turns to ra.
Oh,
this is why in modern Armenian spelling you learn tur. Tur is door, right? And then how do you say of a door, or like so? Taran Quina. Taran Quina, right? And then how do you spell Taran?
With the ra.
Like that? Is that right,
No.
Alva?
No, it's not.
No, it's with a
It
right.
is. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So why is that? It's because it's really turn. The word is tur. But it's only because it's before a nu that it's ra. In Krapar, it's spelled turan. But in modern Armenian, all these nus drop. So you have karan, karnastudzo, right? But we just say kar today for a sheep, or tur as a door. Anyway, so
could that be because the sound changed
Exactly.
before? In other words, the sounds there were different. I mean, he created two letters because the sounds were different. And could that have been a pre-Krapar divergence? In other words, from one root, that when Krapar came around, they pronounced the R's in two different ways in different places. I don't know.
Yeah, that is why. So yeah, there are distinctions between these letters in Krapar. But then one kind of rule is that re is turned into a ra before a nu. So here, the root is ar, as you see there with the re, but then it becomes ra because it's before nu. And it would have been pronounced in Krapar. This would be arar, and this would be arnel with a trill.
Jesse, it seems that the R before a consonant is ra, like arch.
So it's only nu that this rule applies.
How about the chair, arch, the animal, arch is a ra too.
No, it's a re.
Oh, it's a re.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. It's only for the nu. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Andrew.
okay.
Are we down to here now for 4?
Yep, and just sentence number 4, and that will be the final line for tonight's reading.
Perfect.
Anyone want to take this one?
What about Deacon Mark or Kevork?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm chickening out on this one. And on that, at the end of the sentence, the and then I don't even get at all what he's trying to say there. So I wouldn't be contributing much.
I have no idea. Like before, I could kind of understand half of it and guess a quarter of it, and the other quarter, who knows? I got nothing here, so I'm gonna pass.
Okay. Moses, would you want to read it and say what you understand?
Well, I'm the least educated on these things, but I'll try. Naev smartik desanem zi chikoyer arnen inch. Vorbes shinav kut boch ikakats kakas arnen yeboch I dajaras. Wow. I guess it says that we don't want the sanem see. We don't want to see. I have no idea.
We see that.
We see that people
yeah
do not they cannot make something out of nothing.
We see that people also make something from nothing.
Oh, okay. So they see people making something out of nothing.
Oh, I see. So you're not making cities out of cities.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And not making temples out of temples.
Exactly correct.
Okay.
And by the way, Moses, that word vorbes, the word after vorbes,
I know.
I should have mentioned this. Before the O, the 37th letter of the Armenian alphabet, the O sound was made by the combination of Ip and Hun.
Yeah.
So that's shinochkut.
Shinochkut, yeah.
Which is just shinoch, which is builder.
Builder, yeah. Yeah, okay.
Just as a side thing, the Ipun, that's AU basically, right? And it just came to be pronounced as
exactly.
O over the centuries?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So back then it would have been Shinau.
Now it would be an L, right? It would be Shinau.
Yeah, it's like
because Zohrab is an L, right?
Oh yeah, that's true too.
Or because it's a lambda. That's the right 2/3 of the letter lambda. Shinaulkut.
Yeah.
Another example is Paul, Paulos, Paul, Bohos, Bavhos. Yeah.
What is the meaning of this paragraph? I'm still very confused. You make nothing out of nothing, and cities are not made of cities, and churches are made of churches. I mean,
well, I think the point that Eznik is making here is that just as God can't make matter out of matter, architects don't build cities out of cities or palaces out of palaces. Architects make palaces out of things that aren't palaces. So they use wood and stone and nails and cement and whatever, and they create something new. I think Eznik is using an analogy of daily life to make his point that you don't make some, huh?
I think he's making a reference to replication, perhaps. I don't know.
I'm sorry. What? I didn't catch that.
Maybe he's making a reference to replicating things.
To replicating?
Cities from cities.
You can't make something out of itself.
That's the point. Yeah, that's the point. You can't make something out of itself. You have to make something out of something different.
Nothing.
So you can't build a city from another city. You have to build a city out of raw materials: stone, wood, metal, glass, concrete for roads, that sort of thing.
But isn't this counter to his idea that God created things from nothing?
Not exactly. Again, it's an analogy that he's making. I mean, it's not exactly one-to-one that he's doing.
Exactly.
For a human being to make something completely out of nothing is absolutely impossible. Mm-hmm. I can't just snap my fingers and have an apple in my hand, for example, or I can't just say, "Let there be a car," and for it to appear right in front of me. That only God can do that. But in a somewhat similar way, where a car doesn't exist, a human being can make a car out of things that weren't a car. So
I'm sorry.
A human.
This almost.
You go first, Matt.
No, this almost gets explained in sentence 5, if you can understand sentence 5.
Yeah.
But it kind of is.
Yeah. Well, all right. Maybe I can pick that up for the next lesson.
Well, Matt, why don't you?
I think it's Plato here again. You know, it's Plato here again. In other words, God isn't that man can create something. In other words, the things that man is using to create a city is not the essence of a city. He creates the essence of a city from nothing, in a sense, from things that do not have that essence. Whereas the people he's arguing against say that God doesn't create the essence of things. He just shapes the Play-Doh, basically. I mean, I think that's the analogy he's trying to make here.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So Avo, it on the surface it does seem like he's undercutting his own argument, but it's just he's using an analogy here. And actually, I think Matt is right. If we continued into the next sentence, that would probably be fleshed out more substantially,
or more confused because it's also confusing too.
Pardon me?
It's also the next sentence kind of fleshes out, but it's also confusing as well.
No. Well, again, this is really very, very advanced stuff, and I had to spend like several weeks just trying to get through these couple of paragraphs. So it's based on this argument further on that Eznik gets into the discussion of good and evil. Suffice it to say, though, that in this part, he talks about God's ability as a creator from nothing and being able to create all that exists in existence. So it's a very short piece, but as you can see, extremely dense and very, very rich, and requiring a lot of time and dedication and patience to get through it very nicely. And everyone here did admirably tonight, if I may be so bold.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about the text or style? This is pretty representative of Eznik's text and the way he, in very condensed form, puts forth his opponent's ideas and then argues against it and kind of continues down that line of reasoning. Well, I think we can call it a night then for tonight. So let me stop the recording.